not prepare an intro at all. My name is Joe. I'm Joe the Mama. I'm sitting here with my dad. Are you my father, my dad, my pops? What are you?
You just use whatever you want.
All right, fine. My dad. And we're going to talk about being parents, right?
True story.
That's one. I mean, we have a lot of stuff in common, but that's a big one right now.
Big connection.
Big connection, for sure. So yeah, who are you? What's your deal?
I met your mom.
Right.
And then we were married.
Good.
And you were actually the only, speaking of this accidental thing you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
You were the only accidental pregnancy because we just got married.
Mm-hmm.
We were very young.
I think unplanned is better. Like, it's not accident.
No, again, I'm with you on that, but I'm just saying that of all of our children,
right?
Every single one was, all right, that'd be fun.
And by all of them, you mean all 7 of them?
7, correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, there's the one that I got rid of. I didn't like that one. But
we don't talk about Steve.
I know. I thought he was a good swimmer, you know.
Bummer.
Anyway, so yeah, but that's funny sitting here talking to you because you were the only one that was unplanned.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother story, which we can talk about later because I'm convinced your mother did it subconsciously on purpose. She had a dear friend whose husband was killed on a vacation and they'd been married for several years.
It's a great story because there's like murder involved.
Yes. And he was like, the president announced his death on TV. Yeah, he was a big deal. Wow. Yeah, he was a decorated fighter pilot from Vietnam. Anyways,
smokes.
And so we were their neighbor. I guess I'm telling the story. I'm not gonna tell the whole story, but we were their neighbors and your mother and her were both from Southern California and they became close friends, even though she was probably in her earlier 30s. Mm-hmm. And, we were 20 and 21. But living in the same apartment complex because they were building some huge, enormous house out in the country. Mm-hmm. And he owned this big gas company, natural gas company. And they went on vacation to Hawaii. And while they were there, he mysteriously fell off a cliff. But he was a very fit, active, able guy.
Fell off a cliff.
Yeah. And then he was much older than her. And then once they got back, all of a sudden the wolves came out because he had left everything to her.
Oh, wow.
And it was just obvious that there was a lot of people that wanted him not around anymore. So she cried in our apartment for a month and a half over very expensive bottles of wine that she always brought over. And then just mysteriously, your mom forgot to take her birth control for a little bit. And then you showed up.
Oops.
Yeah. So whatever. I'm glad it happened, obviously.
Oh, me too.
But yeah,
I mean, I'm not glad that he was like pushed off a cliff.
I guess here's the thing. The woman always, Laura was her name, whatever that's worth. Laura was just one of her biggest regrets was realizing, oh my goodness, this was like the man of my dreams.
They never had kids.
They never had children because they were waiting.
Right.
They were waiting till the house was done and they moved in and settled and all that stuff, even though she was kind of chomping at the bit.
Right.
And he's like, just hang on. And so she was like, I remember even hearing her from the other room. I could have like frozen his sperm or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think that triggered something, I think it played some part.
Suddenly mom was like, oh my gosh, what if James falls off a cliff?
Right, because I was always falling off of stuff. So there you go. So unplanned, not on purpose, but awesome. When I found out, I ran out into the middle of the road and like flexed my muscles at the cars. I stopped cars because I was like, I work. Because as a young man, you don't know if everything functions, I knew everything worked as far as I could tell, but you don't know.
The tubes connect.
Yeah.
Great.
So here you are. And here we are. That was only a long time ago.
Yeah. Now I have 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So the legacy continues.
Yes.
All because of murder.
It was never proven, I don't think, but yeah.
I'm going with it. It just makes the story more interesting.
It was nefarious. Definitely unusual circumstances.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, like I said, we're here to talk about parenting, which I feel is a very touchy subject for a lot of people these days. Do you want to kind of touch on your experience with parents? I mean, you are a parent.
Sure.
But, now you are a parent plus 25 years.
Gotcha. True story.
And yeah, I mean, you talk a lot about how you've helped out other couples, other parents with their kids. That's definitely a memory of mine growing up, is feeling like I always had like the expert dad. I don't know. You were always talking about it. You were always advising other people. I remember the compliments that our family would get about just us as kids. Mm-hmm. So how did that kind of come up? How did you become kind of the go-to guy for a lot of people when it comes to getting parenting advice and being like, oh shit, I need help. I'm going to call James.
Yeah, I only have my perspective, obviously, and things people have told me. But short history. So even when I was in high school, even I remember even being junior high, like having an affinity for, say, the primary kid schools, the primary school kids. I went to a school that was 1st through 8th, and you could do things where you could help out with, like, say, the 3rd graders, like you'd leave class for a half hour. Yeah, like the
buddy program, like
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed that. And so I think that I'm hooked up as a teacher type of person, a coach, a teacher, I guess. And so then fast forward, I did that kind of even through high school, even in the programs I was in at church. I was a senior, and I had like a freshman that I would kind of take on and like mentor, if not really, but you just guide.
Right.
And then so then on the day that I was married, I had planned to go to the seminary, be a pastor, right? Because I wanted to teach things that I thought were important, right? I basically I came up with I read this book, great book called Solomon's Secrets by Robert Jeffress. And you come up with kind of like your mission statement for life. And it was teaching people who care about things that matter, which is kind of nice because I get to decide what I care about and what matters. And so I couldn't think of anything more. Once you showed up, it's like, whoa, there's no more important teaching or guiding than your own children, right? And so I just, I ended up not going down that path and went down a business route. I didn't go through like working in a church or anything like that, but I did maintain running youth programs as a paid person, then as a volunteer for years. And it was always high school youth. And so when you're working with high school students, you're also working with their parents. And so oftentimes they come to you. I mean, I'm like a 24-year-old. I started my own youth ministry when I was like 19 years old, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like 20. And I have like a 42-year-old guy coming to me asking me what to do with his 15-year-old daughter.
Right.
He's like, And I just felt like I didn't have the street cred other than my experience with knowing her. And so that's kind of the beginning of that. And then, you're born, and then more children come along. So now I'm parenting my own children. And so that's it, just being out in the world and going to other people's homes and them seeing how our children behaved or how we interacted with our children compared to theirs. And people would say, oh my gosh, how can you have 4 children or 5 children or 6? Or say, oh, no, I could never do it. It's like, yeah, well, if they were jerks, I couldn't do it either.
Right.
And so I just believed in the idea of starting out strong, kind of putting the work in early, to have an obedient child, a child who did respect you and did follow your commands, for lack of a better term. I mean, when they're little, so that as they get older, you're not like, now I'm going to try and establish a relationship.
Right.
So anyhow, there's so much to be said there, but to answer the question, I think it was just because I was in that role for so many years, 20 plus years of working inside of high school ministries at different churches, leading retreats, leading groups, all that. And it was all pretty much church stuff. And through sports too, like I helped coach different teams. I was really involved in soccer. So I helped assistant coach different teams and stuff. So you just develop these relationships with these young people where you're somebody in their life that it's not their parent, but you're still an authority figure. And, you start to influence them. Right. And I learned young that influence is a lot more important than authority.
Right.
Right. You have authority as a parent, but influence is even a bigger thing.
Right.
Right. I mean, if your child wants to, Don Cousins, I met with him and he kind of helped me out a while ago. And that's Kirk Cousins' dad, name drop, NFL quarterback. And we know him just from our relationship at Michigan State and the church that I worked with there that Don was involved with and all that stuff. And I remember he said to me, he's like, you've done a good job as a parent if your young adult child turns around at some point and asks you your opinion about important stuff, because they're going to go through a phase where they just stop asking you, which is fine. And then eventually they kind of turn back around. That's when they've matured and you probably did a pretty good job. So long answer, short question, but that's a huge question.
Right.
You'd probably have to ask people that asked me. But yes, I just kind of came like, hey, James, my friend, you've never met him. He's got the situation going with his teenage daughter. He needs help. I told him to talk to you. I gave him your number. Okay. And then I'm on the phone with some guy and his daughter's off the rails. He's like, what do I do? And so I think just the experience of it is just created that, and people experiencing us talking about parenting, because I'm passionate about it. If I'm ever around a family and I see a kid misbehaving or something like that, I'm like, hey, you could probably whatever. Right. And they're like, well, tell me what to do. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
Long answer, short question, but
right. I feel like the answer is kind of just you've been around it much longer than you've actually been a parent. You've been around you've been in the realm of influencing and kind of being in that mindset much longer than you've actually had your own children.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Really quick, a teenager, and I don't really like that word anyways, but young adult, like a high school age student, they're really at the end of parenting.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, by the time my child hits 16, as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of done. There's still things that happen in their house, but like in our house, it's like, I want you to act like an adult by the time you're 16, which you're not going to. Right. But from 16 to 18, assuming you're still in my household, this is when you're going to practice being an adult.
Yeah.
You know, but as far as me, like, hey, Johnny, don't cross the street when a car is coming or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that parenting, when you think of what a parent does, that's kind of over by then. And so when you're dealing with high school students all the time, you're dealing with them right at the end of a lot of the huge changes and decisions they're going to make about who they're going to be as a person. So it's like some of them you can see, oh, yeah, you come from a good home, like or a good parents or whatever. Right. And then other students are like, oh boy, there's going to be a little work here. There's going to be a little bit of a harder shift if you're going to kind of head off in a good direction.
Right.
And yes, you're right. And I remember the very first time, I remember it like it was yesterday, the very first time a parent came up to me and asked me a question about their student. And I realized that you were older than their student. You were like 15 or 14 or whatever it was. And their student was just a little younger. And I was like, wait a second. I can speak to this as a parent.
Yeah.
I don't have to just be the guy. And so now 10 years after that, you know, the experience is even that much more vast.
Yeah.
So yeah, just, I just think thinking about it a lot, reading about it a lot, understanding, learning, understanding. And last thing I want to say is that how I got on this path with parenting was Mom and I were first married. I'm calling her Mom because you're here, but like, I don't like couples that like talk, hey Mom, like when the kids are around, like, ugh, I call her Jen. That's her name, Jen. Jen and I were at and I was telling your husband the story just not too long ago. And we didn't have any children yet. I don't even know if she was pregnant yet. I don't think she was. Maybe she was. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe you were born. Who knows? But it was early. Like we weren't really parenting yet. You know, Mom was just keeping something alive if you were, you know, a baby.
Right.
And we were at this big event. There's 50 people there, and there's a photographer, and they were take a picture. There's tons of kids, and everyone's running around like crazy. There's a few acres on this ranch. And I was like, okay, we're gonna take the picture. And all these parents are running around, corralling their children. You know, I mean, literally running. Like some dads are chasing a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, whatever, because the kids were able to run because we're in like this fence kind of area. And this one guy was just standing there, just talking. And Don, our friend who was running this whole thing, was like, hey, don't you want to get your boys? They were twin boys. And I want to say they were 3, maybe 4, but in that range. He's like, it's okay. I'll just let them play. And they're just playing. And everyone's gathering. And it's getting like, they're literally like lining people up for the picture. And these kids are up, just running around, his 2 boys. And Don even said again, he's like, hey, Del, are you going to get them? And he's like, don't worry about it. And it's like, okay. And the photographer's getting set up. People are getting set up. We're getting to the point of like, everyone's kind of getting their collars straight and their hair and all this kind of stuff. And this Del just goes, and I don't know if he said their names. I think he said their names and whatever, you know, thing 1 and thing 2 or whatever. And they both stop. And from across this field, or it was actually the desert, they're like, yeah, Dad? Or yes, Dad? He goes, come here, boys. Now they boom, drop what they're doing, run, stop right in front of him, look up at his eyes and go, yes, Dad? And he goes, turn around, we're going to take a picture. They go, okay, turn around. Okay, go play. And they're gone. I was interested. I was like, what do you do?
You're like, tell me everything.
Yes. So that was the beginning. And I just had a big long conversation with him, and he turned me on some resources, which turned me on to other people, which turned me on to other resources. And I just got into it, you know, because I was like, this is so cool. I mean, if you're going to have a dog, if your dog did that.
Yeah, I was going to say, imagine the type of prep and work and the mindset that people are in when they get a puppy. If they're a good, responsible dog owner, you kind of get in this mindset of like, this is it. I have to be on it 100%. This is the program I'm following. This is what works. This is what doesn't. Here we go. And that's a dog. You have a dog for like, 10, 15 years. They don't really make that big of an impact on the world, all things considered. And then you try and apply the same type of thinking to a child. People freak out. They don't like that idea.
Smart guy told me once, people will plan a 7-day vacation in more detail and with more vigor than they planned their life.
Yeah.
Or a year of their life. And same thing with children. People, you just brought up a perfect example. People will think of training a puppy, but we use the term raise a child.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a tree or an apple tree or something like that.
Right.
But it's really more like a puppy when you think about it. And you want to produce fruit when it grows up, of course, the child. But training is what we're really talking about here, especially those early years. It's training. And if you set good precedences with your child, as they get older, it just gets easier.
Yeah.
It doesn't get harder.
Yeah.
Well, 13, 14 can be pretty harder.
I mean,
13 to 17.
I remember doing literal training sessions as a child with you and mom. Like,
I was accused of treating my children like puppies. Yes.
It worked though.
Yes, it
and
did.
it was easy. Like sit, stay, come.
Yeah,
Boom.
duck was a big one.
Duck was a big one.
Hey, that can save your life. If I say to my child, duck, and they're like, why?
Yeah.
I don't want a duck. Well, that's why.
That's fine. Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I want to, on that train, I know I'm going to interrupt you because I'm your father. That's mean of me. But,
I'll interrupt you later. It's fine.
I do. I love, people are probably loving the idea that someone's talking more than you, right? Is just the idea that I love, like a mother tends to parent with a more of a high impact style, right? So the example shared this years ago by a father that I love this guy. And he said, if a mother sees, and I think there's actually a comedian that actually does this now, but it's like, if a mother sees a child going towards the outlet with the fork or the knife, right? The mother will throw the dishes in the air, dive across the floor, and knock the knife out of the child's hand so it doesn't stick in the outlet, right? A dad in his head, and the way it's told to me, standing next to his buddy, goes, hey, watch this.
Yeah.
So I definitely had I had a very low impact style. I believe in learning through experience. I think children should learn through experience as much as possible because we all learn better through experience than we do through being told something.
Right.
But if it wasn't going to kill you or send you to the hospital, I'd rather you kind of experience it.
Yeah. Like you don't want to be like a snowblower parent. You don't want to pave the way.
Oh, right. That's a good idea. Pick up a shovel, man.
Well, yeah, not even pick up a shovel, but it's kind of like, dude, you can walk through the snow. You're fine. It's fine.
Uphill,
I could pave
ways.
the way for you, but I'm not going to. I don't need to. You'll be fine.
There's such a balance to that.
Oh yeah.
Because at times that is the thing to do.
Well, yeah. That's the fun part.
It's an art, not a science.
Yes. Speaking of science, look at that segue.
My favorite topic. I was joking.
I know. Whatever.
Actually,
I think I got like
science a lot.
B's in science in school. It was average.
Loser.
You were the one that was teaching me.
That's a true story. Homeschool.
Homeschool. I wrote this down, and then Lee said we should make it the title of the whole thing. Modern. I love that this is how my mind saw it. I think I meant to write something else, but this is just what came out. But it's great. Modern parenting versus what works, and is there a difference?
Is that a real question?
That's just a launch point.
Yes.
I guess.
Well, I think we have to.
And when I say modern parenting, I like to call it TikTok parenting. It's these little snippets, these little clips that you see where it's usually these moms, these like vlogger, YouTube looking moms. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
YouTube looking?
You know what I mean though, right?
You probably do more than I do.
You have an image in your head.
Maybe.
You have an image in your head when I say like a YouTube mom.
You know more than I do about that.
Beige linen.
Don't know what you're talking about. But I'm not as in tune. I'm not as hip as the kids nowadays.
Whatever. Okay. It's usually this YouTube looking mom, and she's got like her toddler, her one kid, whatever, and it's just a minute long segment on where she's like, hey, if you're having this problem, this is what you can do, or let me tell you why you shouldn't parent your child this way, or let me talk about this concept. And you get 1 minute where you can only see or listen to as much as she can fit inside of 1 minute. And then it's like, there you go. That's how you parent. That's how you do it. And if you don't do it that way, you fail and you're not doing it right. Or if your child varies from the example that I've given you, you fail. And I've been seeing this trend on social media of TikTok parenting, like this modern style of parenting where it's very, 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 very high impact with few results. Or if the results do exist, they appear to be short-lived, just enough that you can record it for a few seconds. And you're like, see, it works. And then you get all of these moms, both in the comments or in my DMs or on Instagram or emails. Like I've just flooded. They're like, I'm trying these tactics that I'm seeing all over TikTok. I'm trying gentle parenting. I'm trying to be a responsive parent. I'm trying respectful parenting. And it doesn't work. It's not getting me anywhere.
Respectful parenting? Respect from who?
The parent.
Respect from the parent
Mm-hmm.
to the child?
I think. I'm gonna.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Right.
Or is it like respectful in that other people watch you parent and be like, oh, that's so respectful? Or is the child's respecting the parent? Exactly. No, these are some terms I haven't exactly heard maybe. So I don't want to pretend like I'm well versed in what these people mean by these terms. That's another thing. What do they even mean? Like you were talking modern parenting? Like isn't modern parents just what people are doing now?
Exactly. So when I say modern, like modern
Sure.
versus more traditional or old fashioned.
Gotcha.
I would say modern parenting, or what is kind of the trending style of parenting right now, is this, let me get down on your level. Okay, honey, let's talk about why that didn't work. How are you? You're having some big feelings today, aren't you? Okay, I know that's really tough and I'm sorry. Why don't we take some deep breaths and everything is sunshine and rainbows. Like that's just kind of the vibe.
We're going to breathe through everything.
We're going to breathe through it. Yeah, because you're 2 and that works.
Well, hopefully you're going to breathe through everything or else you're dead. And I'm a big fan, trust me, of, meditation and breathing exercises and all that stuff. But I don't know where that fits.
So when I Google respectful parenting, this is just the first thing that comes up from sbs.com.au. Respectful parenting, also known as gentle or peaceful parenting, is based on a mutually respectful parent-child relationship where parents work with their children to find solutions to everyday parenting challenges, understanding their children's underlying physical and emotional needs. So my first question there is mutually respectful. Yeah. Where does that mutual respect come from? Like, does that just exist out of nowhere?
I guess if you're, keeping the lights on and making the meals and buying the clothes and providing every other necessity of life, I don't know. I just feel like the respect train should be more in one direction, like the thing about that definition that got me was, what was it right after mutual? You said meeting I can't, I got my glasses.
Look at you.
Hang on. No, you said.
No, where they pay attention to the underlying emotional and physical needs.
No, but that's fine.
Which is good.
I believe in you have to understand your child because people are put together differently. I mean, every single one of our children was different. There are similarities you can see. There's, personality types are very, that's another big thing I have loved to study. But a personality is really just kind of the mask that you wear. That's where the word even comes from. Persona, the Latin root means mask. So that's what you wear. That's what you put forward to the world is who you really are. And I think if you're a parent, hopefully you know who your child really is. But I think underlying physical and emotional needs is huge. But underlying physical, unless you have someone that has a physical issue, I think we all have the same physical needs in general, right? Nutrition, rest, cleanliness, hygiene.
I've seen that interpreted, and again, I keep going back to TikTok and Instagram,
whatever. You just interrupted me. Bingo, number 1. I want a score count at the bottom. Ding, 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 ding. I'm just joking.
It's happening.
No, I love it. So you were saying, and see, you interrupted me, and I interrupted you. So like that I interrupted your interruption.
Well,
that's master interruption skills right there.
I'll give each one of us a tally.
Okay, go ahead.
What did it say?
I don't know. I remember what I was going to say, though.
Go.
This part right here says, where parents work with their children to find solutions to everyday parenting challenges.
Why are they every day?
Well, no, but hang on.
That's right?
No, but I think that's a soft way of saying, hey, there's challenges every day. But there really isn't. But it doesn't have to be. Here's my point. If I have I'm going to try and come up with an analogy, which is maybe a bad idea. But if I have a challenge in my work life, let's say, I'm not going to my child to help me solve that.
Yeah.
Because they're a child.
Yeah.
So why would I be working with my child to find solutions to my parenting challenge? Like that's my job. I'm the parent. I'm supposed to come up with that solution. So to go to the person and assuming parenting means it's a parenting problem. So the child, I'm parenting the child.
Right.
So maybe this is better. This is bad because I'm using inanimate object. Well, it's just a puppy.
Great.
So I'm having a puppy parenting. I can't stand that idea, but I'm raising a puppy challenge, training a puppy challenge. I'm going to go to the puppy for my solution. Yeah. Hey, puppy, let's work through this solution together. I'm having a challenge in my job as it relates to getting you trained. So help me with that. What?
So here's something.
That's the biggest hole I see in that right there.
Yeah.
The idea that I'm going to work with my child to solve my problem. It's the child. Yes. You're the parent. You're the adult. You're the one making you solve the problem. You figure it out. Because to me, that's just going to make my child realize, like, oh wow, I've got a seat at the table here. I get to vote on how you parent me, dude. I can't think of a sports team on the planet where the coach doesn't get to make the final call as to what happens. Sure, if he wants to ask the player, hey man, you want to throw it right or left or run this way, you can ask him. Right. But your job as the coach is to already know what's best for the team, right? Or what's best even. Maybe bad analogy because there's a team there. Sorry, that's what jumped out at me.
No, so here's why I think that this is a fun conversation to have, especially you and I. Okay. Because I've been on TikTok for the last, 2.5 years. I've never touted myself as like any kind of parenting expert, none of that.
Sure.
I've always just been kind of open and honest about parenting and how I do it and what works and what doesn't. And here's what my kids are doing and here's what I'm doing and here's what I think. Which I know a lot of people have found very refreshing, and I have the following that I do because of it.
Sure.
I legit, for probably the last, 2 years plus, I'm not entirely sure, have been told by social media that this is how I'm supposed to parent my child. And that if I'm not doing it this way, that I'm abusing my child.
Oh, abuse. Okay.
And I'm not even like exaggerating there.
The extreme words people use
I think
nowadays.
That's an exaggeration, but I'm not exaggerating the message.
Sure.
And so for the last 2+ years, I'm like, okay, I guess this is how I have to parent my kid. Look at my kids.
They're a little, yeah.
I got to a point where I was like, it just doesn't work. It straight up doesn't work.
Well, you moved here a month ago now. So I've been able to kind of watch.
Yep.
And I could tell from day one, we got a little work to do here. I mean, when you have a 2-year-old not stopping when you tell them to stop and running down a street, not down the street, he's on the sidewalk, but and
no, it was dangerous.
Parent,
and it was disobedience to the point where it was dangerous and like it's not sustainable any way.
He was being obstinate and he knew it, but he wanted to act like, oh, we're playing a game here. You know what I mean? So whatever. I don't want to we can get into that, I guess, but just back to your original question.
No, but I think it is important to talk about because if I'm completely switching gears on what I've been talking about on social media when it comes to parenting and what I've been saying in terms of like, well, this is how we're doing it and this is what works and this is, this is how you can respectfully parent your kids and here's how you can gentle parent your kids. And now I'm turning around and I'm saying like, no. I'm saying it because I did it for the last 2 years. I don't like the way my kids behave.
Right.
And I'm not blaming my children. I'm blaming myself.
Sure. That's the hardest part.
Exactly.
Everybody blames the child. Oh, my child this, my child that. And then you get all these, oh, he's just a boy. And
so
mom's,
hence where this
my
little...
boy's a boy. He's so aggressive.
Right.
No.
Hence where this little title here comes from. Modern parenting versus what works. Because we've been living here for a month. And just in the last month, using basic parenting techniques that we're going to talk about. I don't know whether now or later, I'm not sure. Work, clearly work. I see a change in my kids in just the way that they listen to us, the way that they kind of perceive the world around them. It's so much less confusing for them. There's just more harmony overall. And so, that's where that modern parenting versus what works. Is there a difference? I think there is. I don't think what we're seeing on social media works for everyone. Maybe it works for a few.
Right. It really gets into the weeds of like, what is it working? What is it works, right? And there's so much to be said here. I guess the anecdote would be, you had been there a few days and I said to Lee, hey, he had to go to work, do some work stuff. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I just take your 2-year-old and just do an age appropriate little kind of training session with him? He's like, dude, you do whatever you got to do, man. Yeah. Which I did, which by the way, involved only positive reinforcement. Right. I mean, the negative reinforcement was not harmful in any way to him.
Well, yeah.
But it was like 20 minutes and he came back and I said, hey, can I show you something? And Lee's like, yeah, sure. And I just exampled. I just like, can I say your child's name? Can I do that?
Yeah.
I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Leo. And I do it in a sing-song way. So it sounds unique to him. And he would go, yes, Papa. And I'd say, come here. And runs up to me. Yes, Papa. Good boy. Leo, can you go sit in that chair for me? Yes, Papa.
Mm-hmm.
Sit. Good boy. Treat.
Treat.
And the treat, by the way, wasn't a Snickers bar.
No.
It was literally
A
a
sprinkle.
sprinkle. I mean, it's 1,000th of a calorie. It's a sprinkle. And I love using round sprinkles for his age because they always drop them. And it turns into a fine motor skill exercise as well, because he's still pretty gross motor.
Mm-hmm.
And so he always would drop it, and then you get to find it. And that's a whole nother thing that he gets to do. And then he puts it. So yeah. So, and Lee was like, what did you do to my child? And now here we are.
In a good way.
No, yeah. And
Not
now,
like a, what did you do?
right. And now I was just
crap.
working at his level with him, right? To get him to understand. And two things. So one, I was like, Lee, you can do that easily. And now here we are just a couple weeks later, and Lee can call either of your children and they will, yes, Dad.
Yep.
They'll come, they stop. I took Leo to the picnic thing with a bunch of people. It was like the fair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a field full of bouncy house stuff.
Yep.
2-year-old's
Kid
paradise. Right. He already had his shoes off the whole show. It went from one thing. We're going to go to the next one. He was running across this field. And I just said, Leo. And he stopped, turned around and said, yes, Papa. I said, come here, buddy. He came back by me. I'm like, hey, I need you to hold my hand when we walk through the crowd. Okay. Now, compare that to literally 2 weeks. Literally, sorry, overused word. 2 weeks prior,
Yep.
he was bolting down the sidewalk, would not stop for anybody. So it wasn't him.
No.
Right? I mean, he didn't change. I mean, his behavior changed, but it was just the way we were interacting with him.
Right.
And I said two things, and I forgot what the second one was. I don't remember.
I don't know.
But modern parenting, I mean, I guess there's a gazillion probably definitions of that. You read one of them, right? I get it.
It's a respectful
and I think
parenting,
what we're saying,
the gentle parenting.
sure, gentle, respectful, all that kind of stuff. I don't respect my child.
Mm-hmm.
I love them.
Yeah.
Which I think is a lot more.
Yeah.
My love is, I mean, I love everyone. I just don't like most people.
Right. But it is kind of a
but
crazy.
I mean, I love my child in a crazy way.
It's, yeah.
But respect.
I feel like you say that and people are going to take that as like, oh my gosh.
Well, tell me. Well, then if you don't like what
No,
I'm saying,
but
tell
I'm
me
saying-
hang on. Tell me what respect means.
Right. I'm saying I agree. Like I don't respect my 2-year-old's choice to not go to bed. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't respect that.
What's the definition of respect? It's got to have something to do with looking up to and trusting someone's opinion on something. That's got to be a big part of it.
I'm going to look up the official definition of respect.
So modern parenting, traditional. I think what you're kind of saying is like you got the old school, like my grandpa take his belt off, smack you on the butt.
A feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements.
No.
Yeah, my 2-year-old
zero.
doesn't have abilities, qualities, or achievements.
And I stand by my statement. I don't. So this idea of mutual respect and I really love the solving parenting problems part. That's fantastic. I mean, okay, you're cooking a quiche and you screw up and you do something wrong with the recipe. You're going to call your 4-year-old over and be like, what do I do? I messed up. It's just silly. It's silly. I'm sorry. It's silly. And I do respect people's intentions. I think people's intentions are they want to do the right thing by their child. I think maybe people grew up in a household where they think their parenting was super screwed up, which it probably was. And to be honest, I think most parents screw up. Yeah. We all screw up. I mean, everyone screws up. Don't get me wrong. But I think the majority of parents screw up the majority of the time. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why people think of having children as a burden, and a child should be a blessing. It should be something you enjoy. You should enjoy your children, and people should enjoy your children. Yeah. When we went to someone else's home, one of the reasons, I don't know what I was going to say, I think that we became kind of these people that people come to with children is because they saw our children. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because I wrote a book or had a philosophy or a theory. They would just be around us and our children. And just the same way my story started, where I saw a parent who had very well-behaved children, I just wanted to know how he was doing that. That's that simple. I mean, find somebody who has what you want, do what they do kind of thing, I guess. I mean, I was just open to maybe I don't know how to do this.
Yep.
So. And I think that's a good place to start. I think that's a good place to start is are my children behaving the way I want them to behave? Is my life as a parent enjoyable to me? Sure, there's hard times in any job, and there's parts of every job you don't like, but sum total, do I get more enjoyment out of my children than I don't? If the answer is no, then dude, something ain't right. Because sure, one in 10,000 kids comes out super messed up, right? I mean, their brain's screwed up or whatever. They're just born that way, or, YY chromosome aggressive ends up in jail. I don't know. But I think in general, children they all have that capacity. When you're holding that little baby, I mean, they have the capacity to be such a wonderful, awesome thing in your life, but it's on you, parent. It's not on them. It's not, oh, that's just the way they are. Really? No, it's not.
This here says, respectful parenting is an approach to child rearing which focuses on collaboration rather than authority and respect instead of punishment.
Okay, now that's, okay. I said silly. It's really silly.
That's silly.
Collaboration. Let's collaborate on this. Hey, no, don't get me wrong. Age appropriate. Sure. All the time I would let my child collaborate. Hey, you did this. You weren't supposed to do it. You know you're supposed to do it. I mean, if you were me, what punishment or what do I have to do to get this behavior to change? Right? They usually don't have a really good answer. It is kind of funny though. And I'm thinking, the punishment or something should be like scale 1 to 10, like a 1, and they drop like an 8 on you. And it makes you realize how either badly they feel about it or how much they know they shouldn't have done it and they did it anyways.
Yeah.
Right. That's funny. Yeah. I mean, so I'm not saying collaboration is like out the window, but that's just, come on.
No, collaboration
that just
not
opens
out the window.
door. That opens the door for, you're having these conversations with a 3-year-old that they're just like, huh? I know I've had plenty of people I've known that are the lecture parent, and instead of taking action and doing something age appropriate to communicate to this child, they take that, they're taking the high road and they have like this PhD 30-minute lecture conversation with their child. And you can just tell the child's just like,
right.
So is anything going to happen here? Does the toy get taken away? Do I get punished? No, nothing. I can sit through this.
Right.
Okay. And I'm out. And then it doesn't change behavior at all.
Right. And I think a big aspect of, I'm going to keep using the phrase TikTok parenting or social media parenting because it's what you see on social media.
Sure. Okay.
Which is where a lot of people my age with kids are getting their info.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. Oh, what was I going to say? Oh, a lot of TikTok parenting definitely focuses on the emotional side more than the physical side of discipline and action and correction.
Oh yeah, because heaven forbid their feelings get hurt, right?
Exactly. So
feelings are.
I'm not going to drop the name of this person or this account. I don't freaking know what I'm allowed to say or not say on here.
Well, I think you just dropped the F-bomb.
I said frickin'.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I couldn't tell. I heard the F in the end.
Frickin'?
That's fine.
That was probably unsanitary. Are we going to swear on here?
This is your thing, man. I don't know. I'd steer clear. I mean, that's the cool thing to do nowadays, but you don't have to.
Like I haven't had a desire to, so I'm just not going to.
No, maybe it's because your dad's in the room. I don't know. Because I have such a clean, non-vulgar discourse.
Wow.
That was sarcastic. I don't know, man. This is your show, but modern parenting versus traditional parenting. What I started to say was, I think we're talking about, the old German grandfather who takes his belt off.
Old school versus new school.
Yeah, no, but hang on. Takes his belt off and cracks the kid for running across a very busy 4-lane street that he wasn't supposed to run across.
That never happened to you, did it?
Yeah, and guess what? That was my grandfather, and he came over here from Germany. He was in World War II. He was at Normandy. I mean, he was a tough dude.
I mean, his name was Adolf.
Adolf, correct. He was a very loving man, had a lot to do with, he impacted me. The older I get, the more I realize how much he actually impacted me growing up, because he was a straight shooter and whatever. But so that was that. He only did it to me once, by the way. And I could have died. I was not supposed to do it. I knew I wasn't supposed to do it. I did it anyways. And he did what he thought he had to do. Did it leave a little bit of a mark? I think it probably did. But it didn't break skin or kill me or anything like that.
Right.
But I can guarantee you what, and I don't know my age. I was somewhere between 9 and 12 probably. And I always was a 10 shot with that guy the rest of my life.
Right.
Anything he wanted me to do, or if he wanted my attention or he called me, there was not a moment that's like, yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew he was for real. Now,
so I would
on the
say
other
that's
side,
definitely more that. When
but
we're
I'm
talking
just saying,
old school, we're talking.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
School.
So let's like put it out there. Like, what's old school? Now, I think people, oh, that's abuse, for whatever. It's not. It's communicating to me the way I needed to be communicated to, because it changed my view of a lot of things. Made me a much more obedient, better child. Now, you can go just past that, or you could do that in an abusive way.
Right.
He didn't do it out of anger. He didn't yell. It's like, it was kind of like the, hey, Jamie, this is going to hurt you more than it hurts me, but you need to learn this lesson. And there has to be consequences for you breaking that rule. And then on the other side, you've got what I would use like kind of like the hippy dippy type of parent that's like, them and their children, their peers, we're peers and we're all on the same level and we're just going to live together. And hey, man, I think it'd be better if you didn't do that, man. Whatever. Like George Carlin in Cars. Hey, man. But I think when I think of, traditional, but modern, it's funny. They use the word modern as if it's like the new way, and it's not a new way. There's been parents doing things the wrong way forever. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And you see their kids all over the place. They're running all over the grocery store. They're out of control. They don't listen to the parent. They go to school. They don't respect authority figures. Is that really good for overall society? I don't think so. But I think most parents, especially someone who's espousing something like this, I just want to shout out, like, in the sense of like, way to go that you care. Because at least you care. At least you're trying something. I mean, you're reading about parenting. You're finding something that you think works and you're trying to apply it. That's way better than the not care. The biggest insult is what's the phrase?
Apathy?
Yeah, like apathy or just ignoring, right? Just ignoring a child and just not, whatever, kid, do whatever you want. That's the worst thing. Like, at least a parent that's all over you, and I know this sounds terrible, not abuse, but like a parent that's like super strict and hardcore and just, looks like a terrible to be their child. That parent's trying. I mean, they care, right? They care. Their just practice is wrong. And I would just say the same thing about this, is that these are parents that they really care about their children. They want to do the right thing. I just think they're misdirected in understanding how you really train up a child. Because what's our goal? Our goal is an adult. Yeah. An adult. That's what we want. This isn't a child. So it's like, we have to think, okay, I want an adult. So how do I help get them there? And what's age appropriate communication styles? What's age appropriate guidelines, age appropriate rules? What can they understand? What can they comprehend? What can they actually even just do? Right. Because if we ask too much of them, well, then they're going to always fall short. And you don't want that. But if we don't ask enough of them, to the point where we're asking them to help as parent, I think that's also sending the wrong message as to who you are to them. Because that to me would create a lack of respect. Yeah. I'm not respecting somebody who's like, I hire a mechanic and he calls me in and he's like, all right, so, I was making that sound. I'm pretty sure it's this, that, and the thing. What do you think we should do? Be like, dude, you're the mechanic. Yeah. Yeah. You're the parent.
I 1,000% agree.
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
You're welcome. For sure. I have no idea.
I'm just saying, I don't want to blast people just because they have a wrong idea about parenting. At least they care. And that's, you can't teach that. I can't teach someone how to care for their child. Right. And want to be an intentional parent. At least they're being intentional. Okay. They're just intentional and their practice, the practical side just isn't right.
Here's a fun little thought.
Like the person that goes to the gym all the time, but just doesn't do the right stuff.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to use names or specific whatever. A friend of mine who texted me the other day just said that her child was, and it's funny because without even meaning to, I've also started to become the person that my friends go to for parenting stuff. And I think it's just because I openly talk about it, like honestly just kind of talk about here's what's going on, so maybe they just feel safe talking to me about it. But yeah, her whole thing just saying that her child, who's the same age as Leo, was hitting her, spitting on her. Nothing she was doing was working. It was getting to a point where she was starting to become like scared. He was physically hurting her. She's like, I don't know what to do. 3. So or he's about to be 3.
What is he? 40 pounds, 35 pounds, maybe?
Probably. I don't know.
Somewhere there. Good thing he's not 10.
Right.
And that behavior at, 16, you go to juvie.
But that whole kind of what you were saying earlier, they care, they're just misdirected. And when I asked her what she had been doing or kind of, well, what works, what doesn't. Yeah. It's just, well, every time he does it, I put his hand down or I tell him he can't, but she's like, I don't know. So I think it's kind of in that same, she doesn't have the move. It's in that same realm of like, they care.
Right.
It's just, I think a lot of parents, especially parents my age, get to a point where they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm lost.
I'm being respectful. I'm asking him to collaborate. This is a parenting challenge. What do we do, little boy that's spitting in my face and hitting me? It's like the boxer that goes into the corner. It's like, coach, he keeps catching me with that right hook. I don't know what to do. Can you imagine the coach being like, well, I just ask him. I mean, how can you either dodge the right hook or I can get him to stop throwing it? And maybe that analogy is wrong, but it's so obviously her practice. Again, I'm not talking about how much she loves her child, how much she cares about her child. I'm not talking about her parenting philosophy or even her worldview on life and love and forgiveness and what it means to be a family. All that could be fantastic.
Right.
It's just the practical. It's literally just the how-to. Your husband just said to me the other day, he's like, dude, I just need a guidebook. How about it's just, if this happens, then do this.
Exactly.
Which is different for a 2-year-old than it is for a 4-year-old.
Right.
It's different for a 7-year-old. And it's just different, you know? I mean, before 6, it's pretty much all the same thing. But anyhow, so yeah, your friend there, yeah, I think there's probably a lot of people like that. And, it's because abuse is rampant, right? I would argue, and people are probably I don't care. I think abuse exists because of bad parenting oftentimes.
Yeah.
So in other words, the child is that, okay? And the parent snaps and just, because you're just you're literally defending yourself. You know what I mean? And you're way bigger than they are, right?
Right.
And so who knows? You just, out of anger and emotion and whatever the emotion is, frustration, fear, sadness, boom. Smack the kid. Oh my gosh, I just smacked my kid. Yeah. Right. Now you've created that boundary between you and your kid. Whoa. Right. Maybe that works for that kid. I know I wouldn't ever say do it, but now just go back generations and generations of child, parent, and just go back. They say that the abused are almost often the abusers. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Or they swing the other way.
Right.
And they're like, I'm not even going to touch my child.
Yep.
Because the last thing I wanted is them to think about me the way I thought about my parent. Right. So this is just a practice thing. And I've had parents ask me to do this. I've actually done it. I've actually been at someone's house, be like, can you, give me 20 minutes with that child. I will set up a way that you can now work through whatever the scenario is. And I've even said, I know it sounds funny. They have like, we're talking about the puppy analogy. They have like obedience schools. I'm not even kidding.
You're like toddler training.
I haven't done that, but I mean, I've taken, like, we've had families where we've like watched their child for like an overnight or something, and we're talking young, 7 and under, not like a babysitting situation, not like they're over for a sleepover with a friend. And they're like, yeah, just go for it, And sure enough, and because it's just the practical side of it. It's not, the intention has to be there. I believe the belief system has to be there, as far as there has to be a why behind it all. But I think we can all agree that we want children that respect us, listen to us, obey our commands. Some people even hate the word obey, which is hilarious. Just look up the definition. It just means to do what the person says, and then I'll always tell my kids what to do. And I always tell them, your job is do what I tell you. I'll tell you why, just not now. Now, as I do this, yes, Dad, do it. And then, hey, Dad, why'd you have me do that? I'll always have an explanation for you. Yeah. It may not be the one you want. And sometimes it is just because I told you so. You don't understand that yet. It's not age appropriate for me to explain to you why I asked you to do that. Right. Because I may be protecting my 9-year-old from what I think is a potential, pedophile situation. So I'm going to ask them to do something that may seem to not make sense to them. Well, what about my friend's, older brother or whatever? And we're not going to do that. Well, why? Just listen to Daddy. Do you trust Daddy? Yeah. Okay. So, again, I think that it's just the practical. We can definitely get into the deeper stuff. And if I was going to work with a parent, like we're talking about maybe doing with you and Lee, it does start with going way back to just what's your philosophy about what does it mean to be a family? What do you want your children to be when they grow up? Not like a vocation, but what type of people do you want them to be? Right. What is forgiveness mean to you? How does that work? Is it contractual? Are you always going to give forgiveness, or do you withhold it if the person hasn't apologized enough? Or, these big questions are what are behind the practical side of it, right? Yeah. But I think we could all agree that we want to enjoy our children. We want others to enjoy our children, and we want them to be a positive impact to the world around them. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody would agree with that. Yes. Right? And I think can't we all just get along?
I think I can probably, trying to think. Here we go. I think a lot of parents are just searching for someone to give them permission to admit that the practical application that they're using doesn't work. And that's what I see most often with my friends who are parents and with these moms on social media, where they are told to parent their child a certain way. And if they do it any other way, it's abusive, it's manipulative, it's whatever. But they're scared to say, like, this doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't working for me. I don't know what I'm doing. And I need something more practical.
I agree. The toughest scenarios I've ever dealt with is the single mother.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a single father as well, but a father tends to bring, maybe it's too harsh at sometimes, but a father tends to bring more discipline to the situation, typically. And that's just because of just nature.
Right. But my friend earlier that I was talking about, her son is hitting and spitting on her.
Mm-hmm.
There was I could sense a hesitation from her to admit that she doesn't like the methods she's using.
But she's afraid to do the wrong thing.
But she's afraid to do the wrong thing.
Right. So she ended up doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'll bet you've talked to her husband. Her husband's like, you need to control that kid. Her husband probably wants to be more physical than she was letting him be or something like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Because it's a boy. So it's kind of like just even when I tell young girls, young adult girls, like, teens in the dating world, it's like, the men in your life that love you and care for you are going to have opinions about your dating life that aren't going to make any sense to you. But that's because they understand the male mind and the male motivations in a way that you never will.
Right.
And it's good that you don't, because it can be pretty ugly, right?
Do.
And so that's why you need to trust these people. And I know it's the old story of the dad shows up at the door with a shotgun and don't touch my daughter and blah, 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 blah. And that's all malarkey.
Gross.
But it's just the idea that it's funny how there's different instincts there. And that's a whole nother topic about a dual parent household versus, a single parent household, because I really feel for any single mother, because first of all that goes along with that, forget about, a child raising the actual child, and just life, just providing for life and doing all that stuff. But it tends not to be in the nature of a mother. A mother is almost always more a nurturer, a caretaker, so they want to fix the owie, right? I mean, if my son falls down and skins his knee, my wife is, oh, sweetie. And if we're both standing there, he runs right to her,
right? Because
she's going to hug him and love on him. And that's what she should do. It's not like I can't hug him and love on him too, but I'm going to be more along the lines of, you all right? You good? Okay. I've seen it happen. I've seen him fall. Good. Yeah. Rubs it a little bit. Okay. We go walking. And then mom pulls up in the car. It's 5 minutes later. Oh, I hurt my knee. And all of a sudden he's hurt again, Yeah. And that's fine. That's okay. That's good. And mothers should embrace that. Like, what a gift that your children see you as that comforter. And that's who you should be. But comforter and, for lack of a better term, being the executive branch that kind of institutes or delivers, punishments or disciplines or teachings, they're not in the same room, kind of, like they're just, it's hard. So I feel for your friend, but there's definitely significant, I mean, the reason I asked how I was making the point of he's a 35-year-old human, she's, I'm assuming 100 plus pounds. So she can physically dominate him.
35-pound person. You said 35-year-old person.
35-year-old? Well, you know what I mean? I'm old.
35-year-old toddler.
I'm a grandpa. I can say that.
Yeah.
So, manipulation and motivation are very close. People don't like that, but it's true. And if you're not willing to physically motivate your child, they could get killed. Because if I'm not, I don't want to, if her 3-year-old, they're standing on a sidewalk and all of a sudden he sees a squirrel or a ball or something like that, and there's cars coming and he goes to dart across the street, I guarantee she's going to grab a tuft of his hair or back of his shirt or whatever and pull his legs out from under him, and he's going to land on the sidewalk and it's going to hurt. But she's doing it to save his life. And she would do that in a heartbeat. But yet the second you tell people that they need to physically parent their children, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're abusing your child, which is a fear-mongering load of crap. It's not even close to true. Can you do it wrong? Yes. Have I done it wrong? Yes. Should it ever be done in anger?
I think that's the line that so many parents are scared to toe.
We're a physical creature. We're not going to use our physical selves to communicate.
Because I think the line,
it's ridiculous
for so many people, and I'm saying I think because I'm not one of these people, I think for a lot of people, they see that line between healthy correction and abuse as so fine that they're scared to even go near it.
Sure. And I think it's great. Define it. Sit down and talk about it. what's okay, what's not okay, and just know what is.
Mm-hmm.
But to, it's you know, and you know, I've had children where I've physically punished them, right, with whatever it was, and that's a whole nother conversation, where it took a lot to get through to that child, a lot, to the point where I was questioning myself, man. And I don't mean I'm sitting there smacking a kid over and over again. I just mean frequency.
Was it me?
You were one of them. You're one of them. You were. That's a whole nother. I don't know how. I don't have much longer, by the way.
No,
today.
I know.
So, but there's a lot there.
It would be so much fun, and I do want to like talk about that, like from both of our perspectives.
Sure.
Because I was just actually thinking about it earlier when we were getting all of this set up. Like, are we going to talk about that, or what are we going to do?
Mm-hmm. And you were a handful, yes.
Yeah.
And I think God gave us to you first. So then every other child is like, this is a cakewalk.
Easy peasy. I don't ever remember getting spanked and not knowing exactly why that was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I never was spanked and felt like confused or betrayed or scared. Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel good. That's for sure. I did not like it at all. But every time I do remember there being like a, okay, fine. And I think that's where it, yeah.
No, there's
I was spanked as a kid, and I'm really freaking happy that I was.
Yeah, there's a right and a wrong way to do everything, right?
Yeah.
And I actually had to discipline your 11-year-old sister, your youngest sister, the other day. For now, she's been trained to fight, okay, for years.
Yeah.
She's taking a break now, but Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling and all that. And it's come in handy a few times where she needed to use it, literally, because a boy was bullying her friend and being physically, abusive, in a way that needed to stop. But it's not to be used on her 7-year-old brother because he took the remote control. Do you know what I'm saying? And I just happened to walk into the room and see something, and it didn't matter what the offense was.
Right.
It did not warrant what she did.
Right.
So it was just awkward because I haven't been in a situation, and I was like, hey, honey, you know what you did? She's like, yeah. And, we don't hit each other because we're mad or angry or something. That's not a thing. And that's a whole other conversation. Oh, if you spank your child, now they're going to think it's okay to hit when they're mad.
Right,
and all that.
You can't spank because of hitting. It's like, no, you can't hit because of emotion.
No,
and
they're
whatever.
two totally separate things. You know what I'm saying? As a society, we say it's okay to lock people up and put them in jail and, execute. Well, a lot of places don't. But, we you get a speeding ticket when you speed. You get punished for bad behavior. That's what it's called, law. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be a law has to have some sort of consequence. But the end of what I was going to say was, and the conversation about, by using any kind of physical correction on your child, and it doesn't have to be, spanking is kind of the last thing, right? But if, that's a whole conversation about, does that create abuse? If done incorrectly, I definitely think it can.
Yes.
If done incorrectly, and if the child thinks it's being done out of anger and they don't understand why, and they're just confused. Child says something wrong and boom, they get smacked across the face, which I've never done. I would never ever say that that's okay.
No.
There child thinks like, well, I just won't talk because I don't even know what I said wrong. Right. But hang on. The end of my point was, there are children like you that require, they are just, their minds are different, their wills are different, and just correcting them is just going to take more correction. Me, myself, personally, I was a conscientious young child, but I was pretty wild. And there's a lot of stories about me, at school and how it didn't work out sometimes, but I literally need like a 2x4 across the head to learn something. Right. Cause I'm just like, I'll figure it out. I'll do it my way, whatever. But I've had other children that are so sweet and compliant and nice that I corrected them once where they got to the point where it was actually like, a spank or whatever. And it was just, you thought the world ended and I'm so sorry, daddy, and then maybe one more time before like 6-7 years old, and then never ever, like twice in her entire life. Right. Because that wasn't even necessary. Because it just got to the point where she felt like she disappointed you, or you were unhappy. Oh, yeah. And that was enough to motivate her to change her behavior.
Yeah, the thresholds and the motivations were so different.
Yeah, so that idea and the end of that thing about understanding your child, of course. By far that should be number one, is understanding them, because at the end of the day, if there were 4 different people sitting here, I'd be communicating probably 4 different ways depending on that person. because it's all about communication. Parenting is about communication.
Yeah.
Period. That is the number one thing it's about. And it's about giving your child every advantage in life to understand themselves, know how to manage their own emotions, behave in ways that are appropriate, regardless of what the emotion may be. And that's what a good adult does.
Right.
There's still adults that don't do that, by the way, So, all right. But I'll let you wrap it up there.
No, I think that was good. I think I feel like we could talk about this and everything else forever.
Yeah.
So we'll do that later.
Mm-hmm. I think questions would be good. Like if you just come up with questions and stuff.
I definitely, you gave me a solid 20 minutes to even let me know we were coming here.
I know. Well, you can thank your husband for this whole deal. I mean, I guess it was collaborative, but yeah. Oh, we collaborated.
You did. You collabed.
That's gonna be my word.
Wow.
No, that definition's funny. And I've had conversations, very intense, passionate conversations, I would say on their side with individuals that want to argue their practice, and it sounds so, oh man. Basically, it just kind of came down to, here's the deal. I'll stack my child up against your child any day in any kind of test in life. Because your child under any kind of pressure or stress is probably going to crack. Yeah. Because you've put so much bubble wrap around this kid. Mm-hmm. And I hate the word kid. I don't hate the word kid, but I like the word child better. Because kid refers to a goat. Right. And a kid is, a young goat is intolerable. I mean, you can't, and that's why we call children kids, but they're children. And I really mean that. I believe that the way that we chose to raise our children was specifically to put calluses on them and to toughen them and to harden them, because life is absolutely hard. The world is hard. Yes. It is not filled with sunshine and rainbows and everyone's going to be nice to you and friendly to you. And there's, so I, those conversations where it was just kind of like, well, we're going to agree to disagree type of thing. Like gentle parenting's great until you release them into a world that is not gentle. Bam. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. I guess this was fun. I'm sure we'll chat again in the very near future because I live with you guys. So you'll be back and this is your space that you're letting me use, which is great. But anyway, is there anywhere that these fine folks can find you online, socials, anything like that? Yeah, I'm not really good at that stuff, but I mean, I do have it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I think I'm James Robert Glenn on Facebook. That's weird. Am I not supposed to say that? I have Instagram. I'm James R. Glenn, 2 N's, the number 1 on Instagram. And I do have a YouTube thing I set up. And I think it's My Favorite Uncle is what I titled the channel. Because I just made it for my nieces and nephews. Yeah. So I haven't done anything really public facing on there, but there's some stuff on there. I mean, you have a TikTok. I do. Oh yeah, and I have a TikTok. And I'm James R. Glenn on TikTok. Great. Yeah, there you go. But for me, I'm a big fan of questions. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can tell me what you think of me. I don't care. It's fine. I'd rather have a question. Well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what do you think? Argue with me, disagree with me, agree with me. I don't care. Super practical question. Mm-hmm. The more detail you give me, the better. I have a 7-year-old that's doing this. Just give me as many details as you can. I'd be more than happy. Oh, and I have jamesrglenn.com. When I was traveling around speaking years ago, I haven't done that. I don't think I've updated that website in 4 years, but there is the thing where you can go ask questions, and I do get those. Great. I still get them, which is crazy. Awesome. Because I haven't done that in like 5 years. Do a little Q&A. It'll be fun. Yeah. What about you? Great. Aren't you supposed to say stuff? Yeah, I'll go ahead and plug myself. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at jothemama, JOTHEMAMA. I'm also on YouTube, I guess, which is probably where you're watching this right now. Could not tell you what that handle is off the top of my head. I think it's also Joe the Mama. I'm sure it is. Probably. Yeah. I don't think it's Serena the Mama. No, probably not. Right. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, listening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you have any questions or there's anybody that you think it would be fun for me to talk to or interview or topics you want us to discuss and go over, whether that's me by myself, my dad and I, or whoever else you think I should have a conversation with, definitely leave a comment. Let us know. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. And I think we're going to have this definitely on YouTube, hopefully on Spotify soon, and maybe a couple other places. So stay tuned. I'll give you updates when I can, and thanks again. Awesome.